to another episode of The Last of Us Talk Show. I'm your host, Mikey, and today we are recording our long time spoiler review. So, if you are, again, somehow playing this episode on accident, you're on your podcast player or you're on YouTube and this video just automatically started playing next from a list. And you have not watched The Last of Us Season 1, Episode 3, long time yet, stop now. Pause this. Come back later. Go watch the episode first, and then come back and listen to this episode of the podcast, because this is the spoiler review. Again, just to remind everybody, this is the spoiler review of the TV show episode only. We will do a separate episode where we compare the video game to the TV show and any differences. I will tease when we get to that this is, if you're not a video game player and you don't know the story of this at all, this is by far the biggest deviation from the video game to the TV show so far, and I think it's going to be the biggest deviation that there is in general. I don't think we'll get anything that's a bigger change from the game to the TV show. So, with that in mind, we can get to our spoiler review. You know what? But before we get to that, actually, I noticed that again, the numbers for the Last of Us HBO series TV show, it keeps going up, right? And I noticed the numbers for the podcast keep going up, and the viewers on YouTube channel keep going up as well as we go along here, because again, word of mouth is getting out about The Last of Us, so it's creating a lot more interest of fans and wanting to consume extra content around it, right? So I notice I have a lot more people viewing on YouTube than I have subscribers. So I'd love for some of you to hit that subscribe button. That would be great. And same thing with the podcast as well. I got a lot more people listening to the podcast than people who are subscribing or following to the podcast. So whatever you're listening on, I'd love if you'd hit the subscribe button or follow button on whatever podcast app you're listening on. And because I want this to be an interactive show, I would love some feedback. Again, The Last of Us talk show at gmail.com or in the comments on YouTube. And I want to know, before we get the spoiler review started right now, put in the comments or write in the email, if you and your significant other were to recreate the first meal you had together, what would it be? I know for me and my wife, we sat down and thought about it. If we were going to recreate our first meal that we ever had together, we would end up having nachos. So don't cheat in the comments or in the feedback in the email. What you and your significant other, what are you having for a meal if you go back and recreate the first meal that you ever had together? All right, let's head into this season 1, episode 3, long time spoiler review. Again, this one was directed by Peter Orr. We got Pedro Pascal, Bella Ramsey, Murray Bartlett, and Nick Offerman in this one. Again, doing fantastic work. So here's the breakdown. We open up the episode with Joel. We get a little signifier on the screen that this is 10 miles outside of Boston. Joel, he's down by a river. We see his hand in the water. His hand is still beat up. The hand that he used to beat that soldier to death in the first episode, it's still wounded. But yeah, he's got his hand in the water. He's picking up rocks and he's stacking them. I know some people do this for a hobby, but this is not what when I saw Joel doing this, I did not see this as him just doing this as stacking rocks as a hobby. We just lost Tess in the last episode. I see this as him paying tribute to Tess. Also, notice that he's down by the river by himself doing this. He doesn't have Ellie with him. Again, we see how, even though Joel was in a relationship, or had a relationship with Tess, he's a very walled off, guarded person, right? So he's down here paying tribute to Tess by himself, and Ellie is back at a camp. Because he doesn't want to share this moment with anybody else because he's got his walls up and he's guarded. When we see him go back to Ellie, we at least see that Joel is being a kind person. He's letting Ellie use his jacket as a blanket. They obviously slept in the forest overnight, so she needs something to stay warm. Ellie is using his jacket. She's trying to make small talk here, and again, it's very obvious that Joel is upset, and rightly so, that he just lost Tess, right? But I see it here as he is kind of taking it out on Ellie because Ellie's trying to talk to him, and he's not even saying a word back at all, not a single word. Doesn't respond when she says if he want, or when she asks if he want his jacket back. She's trying to make small talk, and he's just constantly giving her the silent treatment. And then he just picks up some food out of the backpack, and he doesn't like walk over to her and hand it to her nicely. He throws it at her, right? So she finally says, I want to talk about Tess. And he's like, hey, no, don't say you're sorry. And she's like, I wasn't gonna say I'm sorry. This isn't my fault. This isn't nobody forced you and Tess to do this. You guys needed a truck battery, and you decided to do this on your own, so don't blame me for it. And even though Ellie here said that she wasn't going to say sorry, I believe her that she wasn't going to say that she was sorry. But I do feel like she does feel bad about it. She's trying to make it seem like, come off like she doesn't feel bad about it. Hey, this isn't my fault. Don't blame me. Yeah, sure, but I think she still feels bad about it, and that she is sorry. She's just not going to say it, right? They decide, or Ellie asks how much longer before we get where we need to go, which is Bill and Frank's, and Joel says it's a 5-hour hike, and Ellie's like, well, obviously they're trying to get along, and 5 hours. She says we can manage, and they're walking along, a road. They're not coming across any infected or anything. Ellie asks, so there's no infected around here? And he's like, not much. And she notices that he's like looking around for something. She's like, so what are you looking around for? And he's like, humans. So obviously, humans can be a problem as well. They end up stopping at a gas station. Joel says he's got some supplies stashed here. He doesn't know exactly or remember exactly where he has them stashed in there, so he's taking some time to look for them. Ellie's, looking around the gas station, sees an old game cabinet, Mortal Kombat arcade, and she says, "Oh, I had a friend who knew all about this," and she's kind of, excited to see it. And then she says, I'm going to go look around and see if there's anything else that I can find. And she goes on her own, and she finds a trap door that leads down to this basement area, and she goes down there alone. While she's down there, she does find a uh, box of tampons that she decides to take. I don't know if that's a good idea because those are going to be like what 20 years old now, but maybe better than nothing. I don't know. It'd be kind of iffy if you ask me. But while she's down there, she also hears an infected from behind her, obviously very creeped out. Um, Turns around, but she also becomes intrigued, and then makes a sound again, and then she sees that this infected is trapped underneath a pile of rubble. Okay, and then we get like this real uh, chilling scene here, uh, because this infected, it's stuck. It can't do anything. It can't really like come after her, right? So she takes out her um, knife that she has, and she's just kind of testing it here. She cuts into the forehead, and um, I've seen a lot of discussion about this scene uh, online, and I'm not sure I've heard this interpretation, but most of the interpretations I've heard is just like, oh yeah, uh, she's lost it. She's psycho. She's exploring her dark side. But I'm trying to take into context something that she said to Joel before, because when we see her cut the forehead of the infected here, I looked at it as her experimenting and testing. Uh, in previous episodes, she asked Joel if it was ever hard to kill the infected, knowing that they were people before. Joel had said sometimes, right? So the way I took this scene is that she's experimenting with the thought, if because the infected are in human bodies, right? But are they still human? Because she cuts into the forehead, and when she cuts into the forehead there, no flesh. It's it's not human flesh under there anymore. It's the uh it's the fungus, right? So uh I feel like this is her trying to figure out, okay, are these things human at all? Because I get a sense that she hates these things, and that she has a reason to hate these things, and wants some sort of revenge on these things, right? Um, so I see it. I see it as her cutting to find out, okay, is this thing human at all? She sees, no, this thing, in fact, is not human at all anymore. And then that's when we see her face go to pure like anger and hatred. And then she stabs it in the head and kills it. Uh, you know, I don't know if that's what they were going for at all, but that's how I interpreted it. Perhaps if she would have cut into the forehead, and it bled blood, and if it had happened to still have human flesh under the skin there, I don't know if she would have done the same thing. Again, this is just my interpretation. I'm not sure if I've heard that somewhere else, but I would be interested if any of you out there agree with me. Let's see here. Um, she After that, she just goes back upstairs and acts like nothing happened. She doesn't tell Joel about finding the infected down there, and then they decide to continue on their journey. Um, right before they do, Joel does take the automatic rifle that he had, and he like puts it under the floorboards, and he's like, there's not enough ammo out there to keep this thing supplied, so it wouldn't be any use bringing this with us. Obviously, that kind of weapon is going to be very heavy, so yeah, why keep that thing and just carry it around, um, and have that added weight when you don't have ammo for it. But Ellie is like, well, if you're not gonna take it, I could have a gun. And Joel's like, no, no. We could see that Joel does not want Ellie to have a gun. He's basically said that every time she is asked about it in previous episode and now this episode. Um, as they're walking along, they do come across a crashed plane site, and Ellie is just amazed that she's getting to see a plane because she's never got to fly before. And Joel's like, these things they're not that great. And again, we're getting to see the innocence of Ellie here and how she's just grown up behind a quarantine zone wall her whole life, and that in fact her whole life it's been um, in this post-apocalyptic world where the virus uh, took over and has changed the entire world as we know it, right? So she didn't get to go on like public transit, she didn't go on planes, like all of this stuff is magical things to her that were from a world before. So she's telling Joe like, "Hey, man, you just got the fact that you got to do that at all is pretty awesome." And again, it just kind of shows and reminds us that, oh yeah, this is like a little girl, and this has been her life. Um, and then they keep going along the walk here, and uh, we do get a little bit of interaction here. They got no choice but to interact with each other at this point. And Ellie's like, "Hey, tell me about the infection. How did it spread? I mean, was it a monkey? I bet a monkey did it." And Joel's like, "Come on, that's not what happened. One and two, I thought you were smart. I thought you went to school." And Ellie's like, "Hey, you think this uh government uh school is teaching us how they failed to prevent this pandemic?" And then he's like, "Okay, yeah, I guess you make a good point there." So he lets her know, like, "Hey, this is how it went down. Um, nobody actually knows for sure, but they think the cordyceps mutated, got into the food supply, probably flour, sugar, and certain food brands are distributed all across the world. People started eating it. Next thing you know, they start eating it Thursday night, and then all day Friday. Uh, next thing you know, by Friday night, that September 26th, right? Uh, it just everybody starts turning. They start biting, and by Monday morning, everything is gone. So that's that. We know that's how fast this thing spread and like destroyed the world. And just within a couple of days, everything was brought down. Um, after they get to this point, they're still on their walk, and Joel's like, "Hey, let's cut through the woods over here." And Ellie's like, "Well, doesn't it make more sense to just stay on the road? Wouldn't it be faster?" And we actually get to see here this theme of that's going to be prevalent throughout this episode of protector, right? Because now we see Joel is protecting Ellie in this moment because he's like saying, he says to her, "There's something, yeah, it would be faster to go this way up ahead, but there's something up ahead that I don't want you to see, that you shouldn't see." Uh, and she's like, "It'll be okay." And it's like, "No, I don't want you to see this. It's not good for you." And she's like, "Well, is it gonna hurt me?" And he's like, "Technically, no." She's like, "Well, you should have lied. Then I'm gonna keep going." And he and again, like I said, he's protecting her. Like, he's an adult, she's the child, so almost like a father daughter thing, right? You would protect your child in this situation. And she walks ahead, and what she sees, yeah, it's a gruesome sight. They come across like this big grave site. And then Joel has to explain to her, because he didn't want her to see this. He wants to protect her from this gruesome thing, and this thing that is, you know, it is not going to hurt her physically, but that's going to be hurtful and damaging emotionally when you think about what he tells her here is, hey, when this happened, the government, they went around to small towns, and they gathered up the people, told them that they were taking them to a quarantine zone. Uh, it turns out that's where they were going if there was enough room. If there wasn't enough room, the people that were left over, well, they were executed. And Ellie's like, what? Why would they do that? Like, why not just let them live? If they weren't infected, just let them live. And the way Fedra thought about it, and thinks about it, is, well, the dead people can't be infected, so that's what they do. They execute them. And then we get a close-up shot of some fabric in the gravesite there, and then we flash back to September 30th, 2003. And the cloth that we saw in the gravesite belongs on a woman who is holding a baby. And we just got this story about how the people in this graveyard were executed. And I'm thinking, oh no, please, I do not want to see a bunch of innocent people executed. I know this show is going to be heavy, and there's going to be a lot of dark stuff in the show, but I was like, but I don't want to see that. Thankfully, they let us leave that to our imagination, right? They didn't show that to us on screen, but we did get something else. So we see, again, we flash back here to 2003. We see Fedra rounding up the people in the town, taking them off in a truck, and then we see our new character, Bill. We don't know his name is Bill yet at this point in the episode, but this is Bill. We see him down, not even just in a basement, but in a bunker below his basement, and he is watching everything in the town go down. Outside of his house, go down on CCTV security system that he has down in his little bunker. So he sees everybody booted up. Loaded up, and he hears somebody in his house above him in the basement. They're at, one of the soldiers asking him, like, hey, did you check this whole house? Is there anybody here? He's like, nope. Went through the whole house, went through the whole basement. Nobody's here. And so Bill's down here in his bunker. And he's like, yeah, you New World Order jackboot fucks, not today. You're not getting me today. He watches everybody leave on his security camera. And I did like this. We see him come out of the bunker, go up to the house, and go out the front door. He's got his gun ready, and he's wearing the gas mask. Like I said, and we've talked about this past the video game, the infection spreads through spores. And so I do like that we at least got to see somebody in a gas mask, and that we got that Easter egg in this episode, especially because the character in the video game has like the most industrial mask out of anybody in the thing. But this isn't the episode where we're doing the comparison, so let's keep going. Yeah, so he comes out, soldiers and civilians are gone. And then we get like a nice little montage here. He's got the whole town to himself now, so he can build a fence and a wall around the town to keep out the infected or anybody else that might try to come and take him away or attack him. He's got the whole town to use as for supplies, food, tools, electricity, batteries. He's got everything he needs right there, and he's setting this all up. He's setting up traps all around the perimeter of the town. We see him at one point eating dinner, again down in his bunker, just watching the camera. We see there was one of infected that comes across one of his traps, trips it, and gets like blasted right in the back of the head. And he's just like, oh, yeah, that never gets old. So we know that he's doing this quite often. So then we skip ahead 4 years. So we know that it's 2007 now. And again, he's doing some work, and then one of his traps sets off an alarm. So he goes out to check on it, and you hear him, and you see Bill walking towards the hole and cock his gun. Right, and then obviously the person who's trapped down in that hole hears it and yells out, "I'm not infected." So now Bill is thrown off because he's the way he was walking over there to with the way he cocked his gun. He seemed like he was just like ready to walk over there and then shoot right away. Maybe he was thinking that it was just an infected that happened to fall down there, but no, it is an uninfected human being who we know here in a little bit is going to be Frank. But at this point, we don't know his name, so you know, he's down in the hole, and Bill's like, "Do you?" He says he's not infected. So then Bill wants to know, "Are you armed?" Takes Frank a long time to answer here, but he finally says no, and Bill's like, "Yo, why, why did it take you so long to answer?" He's like, Frank's like, "I was going to lie, but I couldn't come up with the reason, so I decided not to." And Bill gets over there, sees Frank down in the hole, and Frank's like, I'm trying to get to Boston." And Bill's like, "You're by yourself?" He's like, "Well, when I started out, there was 10 of us, but yeah, I'm by myself now." And he's like, I'm trying to get to Boston. Where I was coming from, the Baltimore, Maryland quarantine zone. And he's like, it's gone. It's all it's all gone now. So I'm very interested to know. We never get explanation, but I want to know: is it gone because it was because infected? Did it? Was there unrest there between the Fireflies and Fedra? Did a work? Like a battle break out there? Why? Is it a combination of those things? Infected Fireflies, Fedra. We just know that that quarantine zone fell. I'm guessing it's because there was an infection outbreak there, but we don't actually get an explanation. Bill decides, okay, Boston, it's a couple-day hike this way. You're going to go out that way. So he goes and grabs a ladder, and he grabs one of the scanners to scan for the infection. Even Frank is kind of like, okay, how'd you get this, buddy? What'd you do to to get this? So, Bill tests Frank, and sure enough, he's not infected. So Frank is like, "Oh man, like, I'm trying to get to Boston. I haven't eaten in 2 days. I know that doesn't sound like a lot out loud, but I am hungry, and I just really, I want some food. Can I please have some food?" Bill finally relents and says, "Okay, you can come in. I'll feed you, but then you got to get going." Bill does let him in, even lets him shower, gives him some new clothes and everything. Right? Um, they they sit down. Um, and Bill has actually made like a beautiful meal. He's got rabbit. He's got a wine to pair it with, and in fact, he does this so well, and he picks out like a perfect wine. Frank even comments on it, and Bill's like, "I know I don't seem like the type," and Frank's like, "No, you do." And again, where this is like the first uh, clue here where Frank is hinting to Bill, I see you. I know you're gay like me. I see you. So that's the first clue that Frank gives to Bill here. So they have dinner, and Frank, even though he was originally in such a hurry to get Frank out of here, I think he saw Frank clean up here, and I think he thinks he's an attractive man because, uh, he does, and it's all of a sudden he doesn't seem like in a big hurry to get Frank out of here because he offers Frank more. He's like, "Well, there's more if you want," and then it's Frank that's like, "No, no, I'm full. I couldn't have any more. But before I go, I see this piano over here, right?" And then he's like, "Oh yeah, let me just like sit down and play this a little before I go. I love piano, and this is like a 1948 piano. It's like really valuable, you know, and of course, Bill's like, well, currently it's actually worth nothing, but yeah, sure, okay, go ahead. And Frank's looking through the music, and he's like, no, 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 none of this isn't you, this isn't you. And Bill's like, no, no, that's my mom's. And then Frank finds Linda Ronstadt, right? And it's long, long time. And he goes, "Ah, yes, this is you." Again, he's recognizing, um, he's recognizing Bill. He knows Bill. He knows uh what uh, what a man like Bill would like, right? He knows this This is you. This fur elise and classic stuff. This isn't you. This Linda Ronstadt. This is you. So Frank sits down and he starts playing long, long time, but he's playing it like uh, super upbeat, like at a super upbeat pace. It's almost sounding like a pop song the way he's playing it. Like a pop song that you'd hear on the radio, like a dance song almost. And then and he's not playing it particularly well, and he's not singing it particularly well. So this is a song that obviously means a lot to Bill because Bill steps in. He's like, no, 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 not this song, please, no. If you can't stop. And Frank's like, hey, I know I'm not a professional, but it's not so bad. And then Bill's like, well, neither am I, but you know. So Frank's like, okay, well, you sit down to play. Again, Bill, a little bit reluctant, but Frank's like, gives him a little push. He said, hey, okay, come on, you play for me. Just play a little, and then I'll leave. And then Bill sits down to play, and yes, he plays the song beautifully, right? It's a melancholy song. He plays it with melancholy. He sings. he's playing it at a lot slower tempo than Bill was, and it's a song uh, about longing for a love that isn't being returned, right? And I think we can tell Bill is not out, and that he has not been in relationships before. So this song seems like it's just like he's a middle-aged man at this point, so this is a song that hits home with him hard. He's got you know um he's got feelings and he's going to have those feelings for a long time, and they just happen to uh they're not going to be returned. So that's probably a song that's been important to him, and um that a song that he feels connected to for a long time. So he's just like playing it beautifully, singing it beautifully, and you could tell Frank is moved by it. And he says, "Okay, uh, so who's the girl? Who's the girl you're singing about?" And uh, I at this point, Bill knows that uh, Frank is gay, and I think Bill at this point also knows that Frank knows that Bill is gay. So he's saying, and I think at this point he was ready to say that to Frank. When Frank asked him who's the girl, uh, he was ready to say there is no girl. And then this was just Frank's way of getting Bill to say it, and come out with it, right? So he gets him to say it, and so Frank says, "I know," and then he leans in and gives him a kiss. Uh, Bill, he does look a little, shocked here, and uh, unsure, but he does stand up. He embraces it, and yeah, he looks nervous. It seems like it's obviously something that he has not done a lot, right? And but Frank just says to him, "What's your name?" And then finally, Bill tells Frank. Frank had already said who he was when he was trapped in the hole to Bill, and now Frank asks what his name is, and now Bill tells him his name, and Frank is like, "Well, Bill, go take a shower," and Bill's like, "Yeah, okay, yeah." He's liking what he's seeing, and he's liking what he's getting, so he's like, "Okay, yes, we can do this." Um, Bill goes up, he takes a shower, he's all cleaned up, and they lay in bed together. And this, to me, again, this scene right here is so beautiful, right? Um, Again, we see here, and we get here that Bill has admits that, yeah, he's never been with another man. Okay, Frank has. He knows his way around, but he is so gentle and caring with Bill here, and then he's saying, "Okay, well, that's okay. Don't worry. We're gonna go. I'm gonna help you through with just the simple things first. We're gonna take our time. I'm gonna take care of you. We can all uh, only hope, uh, that uh, everybody's first time is going to be um, that well thought through by your partner. Like we should all be, you know, that thoughtful with our partner, whether it's our first time, their first time, both of your first time, and be putting that much thought into, okay, like not only am I doing this for me, because everybody's excited for their own first time, right? But especially if it's both person's first time, or it's the other, if it's you and it's the other person's first time, to be not just be thinking about, okay, well, I'm here to get done what I want to get done, but to be taking care of the other person in that moment too, and not just taking care to make sure that they reach the climax, but to make sure that that it's uh, um, a pleasant experience for them their first time. So it's like not a traumatic thing that they go back and look on, but a thing that can go back and look on and be like, okay, yeah, that was a beautiful moment for me, and not like a wham bam, thank you, ma'am, and damn, that wasn't that exciting or romantic or caring or whatever. You can go back and look at it and like, we actually that person actually like took care of me and cared about me, even if it's not like you know Frank is telling him here, I'm not a whore, I'm not gonna just like whore myself out for lunch, even if it's a really nice lunch at this point. I'm gonna stay for a few days after this. But even if it was like a one-time thing, just uh the thought, the thoughtfulness of like taking care of each other in the moment is something we could all uh hope for. So yeah, I really like that scene there. So we get that. We go from Frank being like, oh well, if I do this, we're gonna stay. I'm gonna stay for a couple of days. To then all of a sudden we skip ahead again, and now we're in September 2010. So another 3 years later, they've been together for 10. I mean, for 3 years now, and. Uh, but when we start the next scene, we're opening up with them in the middle of an argument. Okay, so we went from them being like, "Oh, we're, Bill's like, you're gonna leave," when he first meets them, to like, "Okay, you can come have lunch. Okay, you can stay a couple of days," and now we're 3 years later, and they're in a full blown relationship, and now they're having an argument to the point where Frank's like, "Hey, you know what? If you don't let me do some things around this town that I want to do, then I'm going to leave. I want to mow the grass. I want to paint some of these buildings and house. I want to do some of the shops up nice." And Frank's getting ready to tell him, no, I want this. We have to manage resources and material. And Frank's like, if you say that to me one more time, I'm gonna go run through one of your explosive traps. And he says to him, like, all of this stuff is stuff that we share, and the way I show love is by, this is how I show love, is by cleaning. So let me love you the way I want to. Let me love the way I want to love, right? Is basically what he's saying here. And the way he wants to do that is by doing up the shops, and cleaning things, and making things look nice, because he has to live in this space too. And then he drops it on Bill that, and I want to have friends. I want to invite people here and have friends. And Bill's like, no, we don't have friends, because there's no friends to be had. We're in uh this apocalypse. We're in the middle of it. And Frank's like, you know what? I've actually been talking to a nice lady on the radio. And Bill's like, you what? No way. What are you talking about? So we skip to our next scene, where they are having lunch with Joel and Tess. It was great to see Tess back, sitting here, having a nice lunch. And from the beginning of the show, we've only seen her after being really beat up by some bandits, right? And smugglers. So she's been looking pretty rough the entire time. But now we see her back here in 2010, looking stunning, looking beautiful, and just like looking happy and having a good time. Like she's happy that she gets to have some friends, and she's sitting at a uh, at sitting down at lunch and having a nice, you know, good tasting meal with friends. And then the other thing that popped out to me at the scene is that this is 2010, and the show in the current time is taking place in 2023. So that means like we know that Joel and Tess had been together for at least 13 years up until the last episode when she uh, got infected and died, right? So they had been together for a long time. Um, and again, to me, that made it even more uh, tragic and just showed how much Joel has had his walls and guard up this whole time for Tess. Even then, again, for them to be at least together for 13 years, and Tess telling Joel in her last moments, like, I never asked you to feel the same way I feel. Um, you know, that's just again showing how, giving us an example of how walled off Joel is most of the time. Um, but yeah, they're sitting here at lunch. Bill has a gun out, and you know, um, Joel, yeah, Bill has a gun out, and Frank is like, "Come on, can you not?" And uh, Joel is like, I understand, I get you. And Frank and Tess, they decided to go inside, and um, Frank wants to show Tess some things, and we get a little conversation between Joel and Bill here, where uh, Joel's like, "Hey, you know what? I understand." And again, showing how walled off Joel is. He can't even call Tess his girlfriend, right? He's like, "Bill, I understand. If my," and he stops short of saying girlfriend here. If he says mine, if mine, brought in strangers to our situation, I wouldn't be happy about it either. And so they have a conversation here about how Bill's like, I don't want you guys messing things up for me. Joel's like, hey, we can help you out because we have access to things in the QZ that you don't have access to out here. I can even see that your gate, it's it's corroding. You only got like a year left on that thing. I can help you out. Uh, I can get you like the whatever aluminum wire and all kinds of like medicine, machine parts, and all kinds of things. Uh, you know, uh, and then even still, uh, Bill still seems like he's not really going for it. So we see them getting ready to leave, Tess and Joel ready to leave now and go back to the QZ. We see Frank and Tess here actually coming up with the whole idea for the radio code with the music. And Joel and Bill again, they stop and talk to each other, and Joel warns Bill, it's not just going to be infected. There's going to be raiders that are going to come around. They're going to come in the middle of the night, and there's a lot of things that we can help each other out with, so that um, we can help each other keep our significant other alive. And then we skip to 2013 in the next scene, where we see that obviously Bill is still kind of like not totally taking up Joel and everything. They still have contact with them, and they still help each other out, obviously. But some of the wall is now like has like stacked up cards on them, so I feel like that's just like Bill telling Joel, like, yeah, we can help each other out, but like I said, we're self sufficient here, so I could still do a lot of this stuff on my own. um, but the main thing that we get around here is we see Frank and Bill like going for a jog, and Frank's like, "Okay, Bill, like let's do one more loop, and then I have something that I want to show you." And then Frank, um, covers Bill's eyes and walks him and walks him. He's like, "Okay, I'm gonna reveal to you what I have now," and what he reveals is a strawberry patch, and Bill is really excited because. Yeah, again, this is Frank's way of showing love, right? Doing these nice kinds of things that Bill doesn't think about. He's been surviving, not living until Frank came along. Now Frank is doing the kinds of things that make you feel like, oh, I am living life and life is worth living, right? And we get that here. They try some of the strawberries. Like Bill is so excited by it that he does like a laugh, happy cry. And then he tells Frank, I was never afraid until you showed up. And again, to me, I interpret that as and he, when he was talking to Joel, he called himself a survivalist. So he saw himself as somebody who was surviving. And now Frank is here and he's living and he has something to live for and he has somebody to protect, and that he you know now his purpose is to um keep this other person alive as well. And we get that in the very next scene after the strawberries here, because next thing we see is the raiders. They do arrive just as Joel said they would someday, and they're outside the fence in the middle of the night. They trip the traps, it sets off the alarm, so we see Frank wake up looking for Bill. Bill is outside. He's trading shots with the Raiders here. This is the one thing in the episode that I would have a little criticism over. I don't know why Bill is in the middle of, out in the open, trading shots with the Raiders. I don't know why he's not behind a wall or, shooting from a window. But for some reason he's out in the street. He ends up getting hit in the stomach, and then we see here, Frank gets him. He's like, "Okay, let's get inside." Bill's like, "Yeah, okay. I guess the fence is going to take out the rest of the Raiders. We're going to be fine. Just make sure you leave the gas on." Um, and then Bill, he's worried here. And again, this shows me how much Bill loves Frank and cares about Frank. He's not worried about his own death, even in this moment where he's possibly going to die. He's been shot in the gut. He's probably dying and could die in this moment. But he is more worried about telling Frank, "Okay, this is what you need to do. You need to keep the gas on. I have a set of keys that I have left for you that's made for everything. Please call Joel because Joel will protect you." He is now worried about, well, if I die, who is going to protect Frank? Because Frank is somebody who's worth protecting. Joel can do it, so call Joel. He's telling, and Frank's like, "Oh, I'm not alone here. You're here with me." And Bill's so worried that he's going to do this moment. He's like, call Joel, please." But and then we go to the next scene. It looked like maybe Bill was going to die here, but we jump all the way to 2023. So we get like a 10-year skip ahead here, and Bill is actually doing a-okay. He's obviously older, but he's good. He survived, and Frank is the one who's actually now whose health is not good. He's in a wheelchair. I wasn't sure what he had at first. I listened to the official Last of Us podcast with Craig Mazin, Neil Druckman, Troy Baker, where I believe they said that it's again there it's not supposed to be known for sure. They don't, Bill and Frank don't know what it is for sure, but it's believed that it's MS or ALS, some sort of muscle degenerative disease that he has, most likely is what is going on here. And we see that because he doesn't really have all of his motor functions intact. We see that he's not able to paint. We see all these paintings that he's done in the past, but now he's not able to paint. He's not able to feed himself. He can't open his own like pill bag to take his pills. Um, Bill has to wheel him around, help him eat, bathe, get into bed. Um, and in fact, we see him go to bed that Bill get Frank into bed that night. But when we wake up the next morning, Frank has actually gotten himself up early, gotten all his clothes on, ready all by himself before Bill. And Bill's like, "Come on, Frank! Like, why'd you do that? Now, you know, you're telling me you spent hours doing this. Now you're gonna be tired. You're gonna fall asleep in the chair, and your circulation gets cut off when you do that, and your feet turn all blue." And Frank says, "No, like, I'm gonna stay awake. I'm not gonna fall asleep in the chair. And I'm gonna stay awake." And Bill's like, "Why?" And then Frank says, "Because today's my last day." And Bill here is like, "What? What do you mean?" And you know, Frank's like, "Yeah, I've had a lot of good days. I've had a lot of bad days. I'm done now. I want one last good day, and and then I'm out. Um, I want to have one last beautiful day with you, and I want you to give me that last beautiful day. We're gonna uh, have dinner. You're gonna take me to the boutique shop. We're gonna pick out clothes there, and then we're gonna get married." And again, to me, this is a big deal for them, right? Because this episode starts out. It's in 2003, and that's when the infection outbreak started. Right, it was in 2003. So at this point, um, uh, gay marriage is not even a legal thing yet at that point, right? So this is not something that was even ever a possibility to them in their world in the first place. And now they've come to a point where there's like, Frank's saying to Bill, we're gonna get married, we're gonna have dinner together, we're gonna do all these beautiful things, right? And then at dinner, uh, you're we're gonna have dinner and wine, and then uh, you're gonna take all these pills, you're gonna crush them up, and you're gonna put them in my wine. Then you're gonna take me to bed, and where I will fall asleep and die in your arms. And Bill, of course, this is too hard for him. He's like, "No, I can't." And this is where Frank brings this line out again, where he's like, or this sentiment again of, "You love me, right? Well, love me the way I want you to." And we see how far Bill has come, right? Because I see Bill again is, he is our Joel of this episode, because we spend most of our time with uh, Bill here, but he is being our mirror to Joel, where we see both of these people, where Bill started, that's where Joel is. And we see how far Bill is able to come in opening up his heart, to love, to where now he's at this point where he's like, I can't let this person go. But as you were, let's go back to the beginning. He first met this guy, didn't want to open up his heart, opened up his heart. Then he got to a point where, okay, this person is affecting me so much, I'm willing to um, let this person, as they say, love me the way they want to love me, and love be loved the way they want to be loved. And for that, because it's not one way. Like, I'm loving them a certain way, and I want them to love me a certain way, but they also want to be loved a certain way. So I have to give that back, right? So now Bill's going, okay, yeah, I guess I can do that for you if that's how you want to be loved in this moment. Then this is how you want to be loved, because uh, Frank even said in this episode, it's not like there wasn't a cure for this before, now. So there's not going to be some doctor that all of a sudden, some door-to-door doctor that comes along to our house and can give me an MRI and figure out what's going on and then fix me as well. So um they they do everything that they Frank said that he wanted to do. They have a wonderful day. We see them get married, and then not only are they going to have their last meal together, it's just like I said and asked you at the beginning of the episode, right? The meal that Bill makes here is the very first meal that that they had together. The last meal that they're going to share together is the first meal they had together. Only it's a lot more romantic and intimate this time. If you remember at the beginning of the episode, even though they had lunch together, Frank was sitting at one end of the table, and Bill was sitting at the other end, not close at all. When we get to this point, they are sitting side by side each other at the table, just showing again that distance that Bill had from the world and from love to now. He wants to sit next to that person. He's closed the distance, and he's let his guard down that he can be this close to love, whereas before he'd be at the opposite end of what love was. Now he's at the same place. And yeah, they have their last meal. Bill goes and gets another bottle of wine in the back, and he's back there for uh, a little while, right? Comes back out, pours their both of their wine, takes the pills that Frank says he wanted crushed up and put in his wine. He puts them in the cup and stirs it up for Frank. Frank drinks that, and then Bill, he takes the wine and he drinks his glass of wine in the same fashion that Frank did. He just gulps it all down right away, and then Frank says, "There was pills already in that bottle, weren't there?" And Bill reveals, "Enough to kill a horse." And he says, "But this is not the tragic suicide at the end of the play. This is, you know, me being satisfied and me saying, you know what, you were my purpose, and without you, my purpose is gone, and I want to be with you." So Frank says, "Okay, I should be mad at you, but objectively, it is romantic, so take me to bed." We see them going to the bedroom, and then we go back to our scene, and we are back with Joel and Ellie, who are just arriving to Bill and Frank's place. As they are, all the plants are withered, and they get inside. The food is moldy that's sitting around, and obviously something's wrong. So Joel goes around the house to search for Bill and Frank. As he's doing this, Ellie finds a letter and a key that says it's from Bill, and Just as Joel is about to go into the bedroom, thankfully the front door, it was left ajar. Wind was probably blowing, but the door closes. So Joel gets a little bit worried, and then he calls for Ellie, and thankfully he doesn't go in that bedroom. But then he finds Ellie, who has a letter that the letter that she found that is from August 29th, and says that it's to whomever, but probably Joel, right? And Joel's so like, okay, so they're dead, and Ellie's like, yeah, and she's got that letter and offers for Joel to read it, and Joel's like, no, go ahead, Ellie, you do it. And Bill in this letter basically tells Joel that he hated the world too, but he found someone worth saving. And that's what Bill is telling Joel. That's what him and Joel were put on this earth for, is to protect uh to protect others, and to protect the ones that they love. And in fact, God have mercy on any motherfucker that tries to get in their way of doing that. um so uh Bill here says, that you can have the supplies and weapons and use them to keep. And remember, Ellie is reading this here, so she stops at keep. And just like at the beginning of the episode, where I feel like Joel is, he it is showing that he does have uh, a softer side to him, and he is caring, and he can open up, and be thoughtful about the feelings of someone else, when he didn't want Ellie to see the graveyard of innocent people killed there. He was trying to protect her in the moment. Tess, I believe, stops here because she is, she's just not a snobby little teenager. She does also have feelings, and so she is same way Joel wanted to stop earlier. Tess wants to stop, or I mean, Ellie wants to stop here because she wants to protect Joel. But then Joel grabs a letter, and sure enough, the letter says that Bill wanted Joel to use the supplies and weapons to keep Tess safe. And of course, this hits Joel hard because he knows that he was not able to do this, and that it's still fresh off of that. Like, just what, like, the from what we can tell in the episode, it's just the night before or 2 nights before. He's it's fresh that he's not able to have kept Tess safe. So in fact, it hits him so hard that he tells Ellie to stay there, and he goes outside on his own because he doesn't want to be seen being vulnerable. But he does go back inside, and or actually, first he goes outside, and he finds in the garage a truck. At first, they show that there's not a battery in the truck, but Joel finds all the components that he needs to put a truck battery together and get it charged. So now he goes back in side to tell Ellie, okay, I got a truck, I got a battery charging right now. I have a brother named Tommy in Wyoming. He's an ex-Firefly, so I'm gonna get him to you. I imagine that he's gonna know where the other Fireflies are, so he can get you to them, and they can get you to wherever this medical lab is that they want to get you to. And Ellie agrees, and again, like I said, I felt like she did feel bad about what happened with Tess. So right here, it sounds like she's about to say that she's sorry about what happened to Tess, which again, Joel did not want, and she's about to say it, and Joel stops her and says like, okay, stop. If don't talk about Tess. In fact, there's going to be some rules. If we're going to do this, there's the rules are don't talk about Tess ever, and in fact, let's just keep our history to ourselves. Um, two, don't tell anyone about the condition you have, because if somebody sees that bite on your arm, they're not going to even think it through. They're just going to shoot you. Um, and three, when I say something, do it when I say it. And then he asked her to repeat it, and she's like, "Okay, what you say goes." So she doesn't even really repeat it, but she agrees. And Joel's kind of like, "Okay, fine, okay, that's good enough. Let's do this." Uh, they go around and start gathering up supplies. We see that Bill again has a lot of guns. We see the radio that was playing from episode 1, and we find out that Joel explains it was playing because if the um, uh, that it was set on a timer. If it didn't, and if Bill didn't reset the timer every couple of weeks, that it would go off. So we know that um, Bill and Frank have been dead for at least a couple of weeks because the radio code went off with the 80s music. But again, Bill has a lot of guns down there in his bunker, right? And Ellie still at this point wants to take one, but Joel won't Ellie have one. But as she's upstairs on her own, um, looking for more supplies, she comes across Frank's pistol. She grabs that and puts it in her backpack when Joel doesn't see. And then, yeah, they go out to the truck, get in the truck, and Ellie's like super excited to be in a truck because she's never been in a truck before, and Joel's like trying to get her seatbelt on. She doesn't even know what that is. So again, we see a nice little like tender scene here, right? Like uh, in the first, in the last episode. Well, actually, in the first episode, we see Joel throw Ellie to the ground into a wall and on the ground. In the second episode, we see him have to extend his hand out to help her get up after she fell over um, in the hotel in the water. And then even after that, he kind of like pulls his hand away, like right after having to hold her hand to pick her up. And now we're to the point where he's like, he's able to reach across her and kind of put his arm around her to help her get the seatbelt on. So again, to me, this is showing a little, giving us little hints that the two of them can get along and that they can build, build a relationship here. They put in a tape that happened to be in the car, and of course, it's Linda Ronstadt's "Long Time." They listen to that. We get a shot through a window of the truck taking off throughout the scene, and to me, again, not again, this is not the video game comparison here, but in the video game, when you're on the start screen, it's an open window, right? So I kind of took this as a okay, this is where we're 3 episodes in now, and from this point on, this is where Joel and Ellie's relationship. This is where it really starts here. Just like we got the start screen on the video game, this is the start of the next chapter to me in the Last of Us HBO series, where they're going to show us, okay, what's this relationship going to become between Joel and Ellie. Again, really excited about that. This was a really long episode because there was so much to talk about and so much I didn't want to skip because it was such a beautiful episode, beautiful acting. Just such beautiful storytelling, right? Just to me, I don't know if it's the best episode of television ever. I see a lot of people saying that, and it's definitely up there for me. I don't know if it will be like the absolute best episode, just episode in general ever, but I think it's probably the best episode about love ever. Um, of an episode of television for me about love. It's definitely the best with that for me. So, yeah, I want to know, how did you feel about this episode? Seems like a lot of people were loving it. You get a few haters out there, but for the most part, I think people with rational thoughts out there were liking this episode. So I want to know, how emotional did you get about this? And again, in feedback through email, social media, YouTube comment section, I want to know, how did you feel about this episode? I want to know, what was the first meal that you had with your significant other that you would recreate for the last meal. If you did like Bill and Frank, what's that first meal that you would have to recreate? All right, but that is going to be the end of this episode. When we come back next time, we will do the video game comparison. So until then, endure and survive.